Hey guys, it's Eric with Painting Business Pro, and in this video I want to talk to you about managing efficient production on job sites. Alright, so whether you use subcontractors or use employees, the bottom line is that in all situations we have people painting a house. Alright, so in this video I'm going to talk about having a two-person crew produce a house and the most efficient way to do that. So the first thing that we want to look at is what are the things that kill the budget. Okay, so what you want to think about here is when you're estimating a job, and if you're using the estimating forms that we provide, our estimating is very specific. All right, we estimate every different type of prep work that we need to do on the house. We estimate how many hours for the siding, how many hours for the eaves, how many hours for the fascia, windows, door trim, garage trim, other trim, railings, pillars, shutters. So we break down, if we're looking at one side of a house, we break this house down into every separate thing that needs to be done on the house. So we know exactly how many hours are allocated for prep on this side, how many hours are allocated for siding, how many hours are allocated for trim, and so on. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that when we estimate a house, we don't estimate any time for cleaning up a mess. That's not a thing we estimate. We don't say, oh, and then we're going to need 3 hours to clean up drips everywhere. All right, we also don't estimate time for touch-ups. All right, we don't say, oh, and then we're going to need 5 hours to go around and touch up all of our work. We don't bid for cleanup and touch-ups. And frankly, if we did bid for cleanup and touch-ups, our price would be through the roof. All right, so those are the first two things that kill efficiency on a job site. And the first one is touch-ups. Okay, so the key to avoiding touch-ups is a couple things. The first thing is make sure that the prep work is done right the first time. The second thing is making sure, so one is prep needs to be done right the first time. The second thing that needs to be done is you need to make sure that the masking is done right the first time. If you mask a window too far, your spray isn't going to get the whole body and you're going to have to touch that up. Okay, so you may need to make sure your prep is done, your masking is done well, and then you need to make sure that when you're going around the house with the trim, okay, so now we've gone around the house and we've prepped it, we've gone around the house and we've sprayed it, now we're going around the house doing the trim, you need to make sure you have two colors with you. So instead of just taking a bucket of trim paint and your brush, you're going to want to take a 5-gallon bucket with trim paint in there and your body paint in there. Your body paint should have a little touch-up brush in there, and your trim paint should have the main brush. So when you're going around doing the trim, right, so we have a house here, and we're going across the front of the house, and we're going across, everything that's behind us should be totally, completely done. So when we're doing the trim lap around the house, we're painting all the trim, and while we're up on the ladder painting the trim, we're also touching up any body touch-ups that need to be done so we have one lap around the house. So that's the best way to make sure that you don't have touch-ups, is make sure you get all the touch-ups when you're already going around the house. So that will kill your budget if you have to. I've seen people spend at 1 to 2 days doing touch-ups on a job, and that will kill you. So you need to be really intense with your team that they don't leave touch-ups, because we don't bid time for touch-ups, and how you do that is good prep, good masking, and taking two colors when you do the trim. The second thing that kills budgets is cleanup. Okay, we do not bid time for cleanup, and cleanup can be incredibly time-consuming. Cleanup would be drips. Drips is probably the most common cleanup issue. And how you avoid drips is using a drop sheet. I don't care how good of a painter you are, how long you've been painting, it doesn't take very much time to use a drop sheet. Make sure you use drop sheets. And if you're managing your employees in your team, you need to be ruthless about enforcing their use of drop sheets. The second reason that people end up having cleanup is overspray on brick, on the roof, or on concrete. And so how you avoid overspray is a good masking job. So the key here is when people rush and they think they don't need to use a drop sheet, or people rush and they think they don't need to mask that off, or people rush and they do a crappy job masking that off, oftentimes that leads to overspray or drips or paint going where it's not supposed to go, which results in cleanup time, which takes 10 times longer than preventing the cleanup would in the first place. So you need to be ruthless with your team that there's never any cleanup. The next thing is we want to make 2 laps around the house. So I'll come back to that one in a second. Now, the first lap, actually, let's jump to that right now. So we want to do 2 laps around the house. All right, so this is a 2-person crew, and person 1 starts in the front corner of the house, and person 2 starts in the front corner of the house. So both people go across the front of the house, and they prep the front of the house. All right, now once we get done with prepping the front of the house, person number 1 is going to be the spray person. He's going to go back to the front of the house, and he's going to start spraying. Person number 2 is going to continue to prep around the house. All right, so person number 2 is going around doing the prep, and person number 1 is following behind doing the spraying. All right, so that's the first lap around the house. So we're back to the corner of the house, and now the house is prepped and sprayed. Person number 1 and number 2 both prepped the front, and then person number 1 went back to the front, 2 went around the sides, and 1 came behind doing the spraying behind them. So now we get back to the front of the house, and person number 1, both of them, they both grab one of these buckets where they've got their trim paint and they've got their body paint in the bucket, and then they both go around the house one more time doing the trim and touching up the body. By the time they get done with the second lap around the house, the job should be done because there are no touch-ups, because you took both colors as you went and you hit the touch-ups as you went. And the second thing is you don't have any cleanup to go back and do because you've done a good job prepping, a good job masking, and a good job using drop sheets. So you only have 2 laps around the house. So when we go around the house doing the trim, we're taking a bucket with both colors. When we go around the house doing the prep work, we're taking a prep bucket. So when you climb up a ladder, this is another thing that kills the budget. We don't bid time to climb up and down ladders. All right, so what you don't want to do is if you're prepping a window on the 2nd story, you don't want to climb up there with your 5-in-1 and scrape the window and then climb down and get your sandpaper and climb up and sand it and climb down and get your primer and climb. Have a prep bucket. All right, so you've got your 5-gallon bucket. In your bucket, you've got a 5-in-1, you've got sandpaper, you've got primer, you've got a caulk gun, and you've got a masking gun. So you take all of that stuff with you when you go up the ladder, and that's going to save you time going up and down the ladder. So you want to make sure you have a prep bucket, you want to make sure you have a trim and body bucket, and you want to make sure you do 2 laps around the house. As you're going around the house, don't leave any cleanup, don't leave any touch-ups, and just doing these 5 things is going to increase your efficiency significantly. Now, the only other thing that we haven't talked about is hiring painters that are fast enough. So if you go look at our estimating form, we estimate a job and we come up with the number of hours that the job is going to take. And how we come up with that is we look at all the individual pieces of the house and estimate how much time it's going to take. So for a door trim, we bid 1 hour to trim out a door. Now, if you go ask any good painter how long it takes them to trim out a door, they will say it takes them less than an hour. They might say 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So the way that we bid a house is very generous. We bid an hour for a door trim, an hour and a half for a garage trim. We bid 200 square feet for spraying, and that's 1 hour to spray 200 square feet. That includes the masking, but 200 square feet, once it's masked, spraying 200 square feet takes about 10 minutes. All right, so you just got to mask a couple windows first. So the budgets for how we estimate the hours on a job are very easy to beat. So why do people not beat the budget? Why do people go overtime? It's because of this stuff. They take a lot of time on touch-up, a lot of time on cleanup. They don't do 2 laps around the house, so they're just inefficient. All right, when you're painting a house, you should go across the front of the house, and you should go top right to bottom left. So everything to the right side is done. Everything to the left side is not done. And so as you go around the house, everything to the side behind you is done. Everything to the side in front of you is not done yet. And you make sure that it's getting done completely the first time. And when we quote a house, there's plenty of time, so everyone should be able to beat a budget. Implement some of these things, and I guarantee if you're not very profitable or you're taking too long on jobs, I guarantee you're not doing all 5 of these things. And if you do these 5 things, you should beat budgets. That's going to significantly improve your efficiency. And when your efficiency improves, you make more money, your employees can make more money. And part of how you're going to improve this efficiency is incentivizing your employees. All right, so when you pay them per job, they have an incentive to figure out how to get that job done faster. And so they're going to be way more interested in following your instructions with these things than if you're just paying them hourly. So those are some tips to help you improve your efficiency in production. Implement them and watch your production efficiency improve. I hope I hope this video helped you. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We got a ton more stuff coming at you this year. So I hope it was helpful. We'll see you in the next video.